I am Stan Goldstein with Kates-Boylston Publications. As part of our KB On the Road Live series, I'm glad to be joined by Jennifer Parvin, the Vice President, Marketing and Technology for Batesville. Jennifer, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. People know Batesville is a leader in the industry. Are there any new things you are working on that we can expect to hear about this year?
Yeah, you're right. We have a long legacy of innovation, and our teams are always focused on what's happening in the future. So even during the pandemic, while many of our frontline associates were working hard to keep up with what was going on, our product and marketing managers were working incredibly hard on the back end to continue to develop new solutions that really help us celebrate that life. So as you know, we've always been focused on personalization, and over the last year, I think people have really started to see the difficult challenge of saying goodbye without getting to see their loved one or share that service or opportunity with their support network. So I think we realized really just how important that personalizing the funeral and personalization will continue to be. So not just the physical products, right, as you think about like burial and cremation product, but even the digital solution. So we are continuing to build on our Family Choices personalization platform, which really allows families to enhance that funeral experience both digitally and physically in the traditional funeral product. So you'll see a number of things coming out in the coming months around that. And we also have some products coming up around cremation. So I think we all know cremation continues to rise in our industry and will continue to do so. And for us, we've got a number of really innovative wood products that are going to come out later this year that are going to drive greater versatility to help meet the needs of cremation families, but also some oversized products. So as consumers and demographics in the US continue to grow, we have some new wood products in that line as well.
Okay. And I know you do a lot of research with consumers and funeral directors. Are there any new trends you have noticed?
Yeah, we actually just wrapped a research study for consumers and really helping us understand what will funeral professionals and consumers be looking as we kind of exit this post-COVID world. And so I think we found some really interesting things. One was a really strong preference of consumers to still make funeral arrangements in person. So obviously COVID has allowed funeral directors to connect with consumers differently, but in talking to consumers, they really prefer to go back to the funeral home as they once did. Also, you know, we started to see more and more families do kind of streaming or video type services. And so you wonder, is that something that is going to take off in the future? And again, most consumers strongly agree that they want to go back to being able to celebrate together, right? Celebrate that life together with loved ones. So what we were really excited to see is that there's a strong belief amongst consumers that really funeral traditions will resume to pre-pandemic kind of traditions of where we were pre-COVID. The other thing that was interesting in the research, and I think this is good for all of us in the industry, so often we think that consumers are most focused on price, coming in and saying, hey, what's the funeral going to cost? And obviously price is a component of that, absolutely. But the thing that they're actually really looking for is really the benefits of the funeral. So, you know, they want to know the cost, but they also are looking to understand, hey, what is the benefits of this service and what is this service going to provide? So I think that's something as an industry and as funeral providers, we need to make sure to continue to provide that information.
Absolutely, yeah. And this virtual conference is a good example of adapting to and the rapid acceleration of doing things differently. How is Batesville supporting funeral directors throughout this change?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around all that has changed over the last year.
Really?
I think one thing that's really been amazing to me is really the flexibility and adaptability of funeral directors in general, specifically with the use of technology. While some changes I think we've seen are temporary, right? Like having to make virtual arrangements and families want to come back to the funeral home, which I think is great. I do think COVID though has allowed us to remove those kind of final barriers of technology, and we were able to break those down and think about, hey, how can we leverage technology and digital tools to really create a better funeral planning experience. And that's exciting, right? Because it helps us reinforce the value of the funeral and why funeral, and really kind of reshapes the perception of the industry in comparison to how some other folks maybe go to business. When I think about an example, right? Stay-at-home orders, very quick, overnight. No one was leaving the house. Service restrictions were implemented. And it was very easy for us to help funeral directors leverage our Meaningful Selections digital merchandising solution to help families connect through the selection process. So this is a free solution that we've had in the market, and it's used by thousands of funeral homes. But at the beginning of COVID, we were able to expand the access of that to connect it directly to funeral home websites, and also direct funeral directors to use that and how they can engage with families remotely. So they were able to educate families not only on funerals and products, but really show that differentiation of product and feature and personalization that would have normally happened in the physical environment, but was able to quickly adapt in the virtual environment. The other thing I think that we've started to see is our web team was able to quickly shift and think about, hey, so you make the arrangement virtually using tools, but how do we get the community or families or friends to be able to engage in what that funeral experience looks like? So really being able to think about, how do we provide webcasting services? What are best practices for webcasting services? How do we engage families in that? Unfortunately, I had a loved one pass away during COVID, and we had to do exactly that. There was only 10 people at the funeral, but connecting the rest of the family virtually with the help of our funeral professional and some of the Batesville team back in Indiana was great.
Following up on that, so anything you can see changing in the actual funeral home?
Yeah, I think research and consumers are telling us they want to get back to the funeral home. So thinking about what that funeral home space looks like and what that arrangement in the future looks like is going to be important as well. So for us, our merchandising team also completed a research study on kind of what was the future of the arrangement. And this was pre-COVID, right? Before we went through all these kind of digital changes, but really understanding what was the physical space needed and the process that was going to be needed. So we continue to explore that research on the backside over the last year. And like our voice of customer said, right, families are going to be looking to come back to the funeral home. And I think for us, we'll be able to take that, and we have an opportunity, and I think really an obligation to the family to say, hey, how do we maximize the opportunity that we have with that grieving family? So how do we take a combination of that face-to-face funeral planning experience as well as also that digital, right? And combine those together. So I think selection rooms of the future will be a combination of that kind of physical experience that we have today, but also the digital that we've learned over the last year. And for us, I'm excited because we're going to have new tools to be able to integrate those things together at the end of 2021 that I think will change that selection room experience from the traditions that we've typically had.
Okay. And following up on that, you may have answered some of that, but be a little more specific. What ways can Batesville assist funeral directors with stressing the importance of a meaningful service? What tools do you offer?
Yeah, I think that people in our industry, right? I talk to friends or relatives that are outside of the industry, and I always think, don't people just know why a funeral is important, right? Don't they just kind of get it? And I think, sometimes when you live in the forest, you can't see the trees, right? I think the thing that the research continues to show us is consumers don't get it, right? And they don't understand. And it's our responsibility as an industry and as a leader in this industry to help drive that explanation. So for years and years, we've had a long-standing partnership with Dr. Alan Wolfelt, and he has been a huge advocate in helping us provide information to help families and funeral directors really navigate through this process. We have a library of resources that are available on Batesville.com to help support families. And that's a wide variety of topics, right? What to expect when planning a funeral, decisions that are going to have to be made, articles that can be shared. And then even after that meaningful funeral or meaningful service, that grief process, right? What can families expect? So all of that information is available on Batesville.com, and certainly something you guys can use with families. Additionally, for our Batesville website customers, that's embedded into the funeral home website. So if you have a website with us, that is resources that are available from your funeral home website directly to your community. So that's been a huge resource. One thing, and I'm going to go a little off topic, it's not about meaningful funerals, but the relationship with Dr. Wolfelt made me think about it. And another great resource that we've seen over the last year is he has really helped our staff navigate through this need for self-care. And so when I think about everything that we've been through as an industry, really taking care of families in communities and working countless hours, oftentimes we're putting ourselves second, and that is going to start to wear over time. And we've seen it in our own staff, right, with plants working 7 days a week, but really taking the time to invest in ourselves is going to be so important as we exit this post-COVID world. So also in that resource section on Batesville.com is a number of resources to really think about, how do you put yourself first? What are the kind of pillars and importance of self-care? And I would just encourage any funeral professional, or honestly anyone that's kind of weathered this COVID storm, to go spend some time in that resource section as well, because that's certainly something I think we all can use.
Yeah, definitely. And how may someone get in contact with you or at Batesville?
Yeah, so you can connect with us at www.batesville.com, right through our info section, or you're welcome to call our funeral director assistance line. They are always there, 8 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock at night. And if anyone wants to reach out to me directly, you can email me. It's Jenn.Parvin, Parvin at Batesville.com. So I'll certainly be glad to connect you with anything that we spoke about today, or if you've just got an additional question. So I look forward to hearing from folks. I appreciate the time that you gave us today. And I would be remiss if I didn't exit this and just take a time and take a moment to say thank you to the industry. So on behalf of the Batesville team, just words can't even explain, right? What you guys really have done for your communities over the last year. And never in the history of our industry have funeral directors or funeral service been more important. So I know the pandemic has tested all of us in a number of ways. And I think we've all learned a lot over the last year. One, that life is precious. And so we need to certainly make sure to take advantage of every opportunity. But I think most importantly for me and my team, we're just proud to get to work alongside of people that have been so dedicated to serving their community. So thank you.
Very well put. Thank you. I'm glad you added that in. Yes, very important. With everything that's going on, I guess, well, we're about 13 months now or so. So yeah, and so,
yeah,
but very
it's
well.
hard to believe. We're not at the end, but we are seeing light at the end of the tunnel, which is a wonderful thing.
Jennifer, thank you very much. Thank you for joining us. Very, very interesting what you had to say today. Thank you.
Have a great day.
Okay, bye-bye.